Okay, so if you're in my class, you should be working on your review that you need to turn in. It's 5 bonus points on the exam. It's also a daily quiz grade, and it's based on however many you complete. You need to work it neatly on separate paper and submit it into your matching folder in D2L the night before the exam. Our exam is coming up, so make sure you are paying attention. All of the information is in D2L. All right, so we're going to do similar problems that are on here, but not these. These are for you to work. There is a key on the back if you're needing some help and making sure you got to the right answers. All righty, so we are going to do example 1. And we are looking to solve, and I just made up a formula here, 4D plus 3CD. So it's not an actual formula, I just put some letters together. So, and we need to know we are solving for C. So for solving for C, we've got to get the C term. There's only one here by itself, so I'm going to move that 4D over. And then I get R minus 4D is equal to 3CD, always doing the opposite operations. To get C by itself, it's being multiplied, so I'm going to divide by the 3 and the D. And we end up with R minus 4D over 3D is equal to C, because the 3 and the D will cancel. This is your final answer. You cannot reduce the D's here because the R doesn't also have one. All right, let's go on to number 2. Number 2, we are going to graph x is less than or equal to 7. So we're looking at graphing this. This is an inequality. And so to graph that, you're graphing it on a number line. You're not graphing that on a regular graph grid that we're used to. We're graphing on a number line. So negative infinity to infinity, and then put your 7. You're always going to put your infinities on there, and then I'm going to put the number that's involved. X is less than or equal to 7. Less than means you're going to go to the left. It's not always about the way that that points, but it is going to go this way. X is less than or equal to 7. If I had it written as this is the same thing as this. X is still less than or equal to 7. It still goes to the left. It's not about the way the inequality is pointing. Now, we have to figure out if it gets a bracket or if it gets a parentheses. If it doesn't have the equal part, it is a parentheses. If it has the equal part, it means it includes it, and you put a bracket. The other part of this is to do interval notation. Now, if I pull it straight off of here, I can do my interval notation. So negative infinity to 7, because it includes this left side. Infinities always get parentheses because you're never going to reach them, and the 7 gets a bracket. So make sure you put it in the right order. Do not flip it around. It goes just like it looks like on the number line. All right, our next question is going to be to find f at 4 when f of x equals 3x squared plus 6x minus 5. So here we're just plugging in. You're evaluating the function at that value, and so you're just plugging in the 4. So f at 4, we're going to plug that 4 into wherever our x is equal to 3 times 4 squared plus 6 times 4 minus 5. So we have 4 squared would be 16. 6 times 4 is 24 minus 5. 3 times 16 will get us 48 plus 24 minus 5. When we add that together, we get 67. So this would be our final answer there. All right, our next answer or question number 4, we are going to find the slope, given the 2 points that we have. So if you remember from class, I'm going to tell you to always label x1, y1, x2, y2. Remember the formula is m is equal to y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. It does not matter which point you choose as the first point and which is the second point. That won't matter at all. So here our m will equal to, because we chose this as point 1 and point 2, it'll be 5 minus 2 over negative 1 minus 3. So always pull the signs with it. On the top, we get 5 minus 2 is 3. And on the bottom, we have negative 1 minus 3 is going to be negative 4. They're the same sign, so we add and keep the sign. It does not matter where you put the negative sign. It could be at the top, out front, or down here, as long as you include it. All right, the next example that we have, number 5, we're going to determine if it is parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So I'm going to give us two equations. Negative 3x plus 2y equals negative 4, and 2x plus 3y equal to negative 9. So to determine if it's parallel, perpendicular, or neither, we find that by the slope. So we're going to solve both of these equations in slope-intercept form. So it'll be y equals mx plus b is what we want. We want it in this format because we're going to look at the slopes. Remember, if they're parallel, they will have the same slope exactly. Perpendicular, it'll be the negative reciprocal or the opposite reciprocal. So you're going to flip the sign and number, and then neither, it won't match either of those. All right, so let's do our example here. So I'm going to solve for the first one, so I'm going to add the 3x to the other side because I want to solve for y. So we get 2y is equal to 3x minus 4. Divide each term by 2, and I get y is equal to 3 halves x minus 2. So here, my slope is 3 halves. On this one, I'll move the 2x over, and I get 3y is equal to negative 2x minus 9. Divide each term by 3, so I solve for my y, and y equals negative 2/3 x minus 3. So here, my m is equal to negative 2/3. So when I look at these, they are not exactly the same, but 2/3 flipped over gets us, 3 halves flipped over gets us 2/3. This one's positive, this one's negative. So we flipped the number and the sign, so that makes this one perpendicular. So if they had both had 3 halves or both had negative 2/3, they would be parallel if they both had it. But because it's a flip number, flip sign. All right, let's look at number 6. So for number 6, we are doing some factoring. And on each of the factoring problems, we are going to factor completely. So we have 27x to the 6th minus 6x to the 4th minus 30x squared. So this is not something we can do the AC method with because it's not a squared term. So we want to see if there's a GCF going on here. Well, they all have x's, so I can pull out the smallest exponent, so x squared, and between 27, 6, and 30, they are all divisible by 3. So 27 divided by 3 would get me 9. X to the 6 divided by x squared, I just subtract my exponent, so I get x to the 4th. Negative 6 divided by 3 would be negative 2. X to the 4th divided by x squared, 4 minus 2, would get me 2 left over. Negative 30 divided by 3 would get me negative 10, and the x squareds would cancel. And if you're not sure, you can always write that off to the side. So you can do 27x to the 6 divided by 3x squared. 3 goes into 27 9 times. Bring up the 2, so we would subtract, so you would end up with 9x to the 4th. So you can always do off to the side if you need to. Now again, this is not an AC method, so we're just looking at, because it's to the 4th, we're not going to try and factor that. You're just pulling out the GCF on that one. All right, number 7. We are, again, factoring completely. When we have 3xy minus 15x plus 7y minus 35. So we have 4 terms. Whenever we have 4 terms, we're factoring by grouping. So on the first half, we can factor out a 3 and an x. That's the GCF on the first half. We're left with y minus 5. Bring down your sign. Between 7y and negative 35, we can factor out a 7, and we get y minus 5 left over. You know you did it correctly if those match. We can now factor out y minus 5 and get 3x plus 7. So that would be our final answer for this one. All right, now we're going to go do number 8. So for number 8, we are again factor completely. And we have x squared minus 6x plus 5. So here we're going to do our AC method. That's A times C getting us to B. You are welcome to use the box method or whatever you know how to factor. Just make sure you know how to do it. So our A is going to be 1. Our C is 5. Remember, it's ax squared plus bx plus c format. So the A, the B, and the C are the coefficients. 1 times 5 is 5, and we're trying to get to a negative 6 for our B. Start with 1 and 5 so we can get our signs right. We need to get a positive here but a negative here. Because we have to get a positive, that means they're either both positive or both negative. In this case, they have to be negative to get a positive up here. So negative 1 times negative 5 is positive 5. And when I add them, I get negative 6. And that's what I'm looking for. So we're going to take these two numbers and rewrite our middle number here. So x squared minus x, because it's minus 1x, minus 5x plus 5. And you can write the 1 if you want in front of it, but you do not have to. On the first half, we can factor out an x, and we get x minus 1 left over. Bring down our minus, and we can factor out a 5. And we end up with x, and positive 5 divided by negative 5 would be negative 1. Again, the parentheses match. So we get x minus 1 times x minus 5. Now, if you understand it, once you find your numbers, notice how these match. That only happens when you have a 1 up front. As you'll see on the next problem, that won't work. All right. So let's go do number 9. So final answer. On number 9, again, we're going to factor completely. And we are factoring 12x squared plus 31x plus 20. So we've got some big numbers here. 31 is prime, so we're not going to have a common factor going on there, so we just have some really big numbers. So A times C getting us to B. A is 12 times C is 20. That'll get us 240. Trying to get to our B, and our B is 31. So I'm going to start with 1 and 240, so I make sure my signs are all correct. I can see that they're all positive, so it'll be all positive factors over here. So 1 times 240 is 240. When I add them, I get to 241. 2 times 120 is 240. When I add it, I get to 122. 3 times 80 is 240. When I add, I get 83. 4 times 60 is 240, and when I add it, I get to 64. You don't have to list all of them, but I do this so that I make sure I don't miss anything, and it helps you really see how to do it. 5 times 48 is 240. When we add, we get to 53. So we're slowly going down. 6 times 40 is 240. When we add it, we get to 46. It won't divide by 7, and I can check that on my calculator. I can take 240 divided by 7. It will divide by 8. 8 times 30 is 240, gets us 38. We're getting closer. It won't divide by 9, but it will divide by 10. 10 times 24 is 240, and when we add that, we get 34. 11 won't go into it, but 12 will. 12 times 20, which is what we started with. When we add those, we get 32. It won't divide by 13 or 14, but it will divide by 15. 15 times 16 will get us to 40, and when we add them, we get to 31. So those are the two factors we're going to use up here. So I'm going to rewrite this as 12x squared plus 15x plus 16x plus 20. So I rewrote 31 as 15 and 16. All right, split it in half. In the first half, we can divide both terms by 3, and we can also factor out an x. 12 divided by 3 would be 4. X squared divided by x will get us x. 15x divided by 3x will get us 5. Bring down our positive sign. Between 16 and 20, we'll factor out a 4. And we're left with 4x. 20 divided by 4 is 5. We know that we did it correctly because they match, just like they did on the last problem. 4x plus 5 is our greatest common factor, and we factor those out. We're left with a 3x plus 4. And that would be your final answer. So like I said, you don't have to do all of those. You could have kind of jumped ahead a little bit, but make sure that you're not missing what you're looking for. All right, so for our next one, number 10, we are again factor completely. And we have 36x squared minus 25. So this is not an AC method because it only has two terms. And if we notice, this is a difference, and this is a square. So let's see, 36 is a perfect square, so is the x squared, and so is the 25. When you factor these, they're always going to look like this. There'll be a minus, there'll be a plus, and they'll match otherwise. So the square root of 36 is 6. Square root of x squared is x. Square root of 25 is 5. So it'll look exactly the same except for a minus and a plus. All right, we have one more factor problem. So number 11, we are again factor completely. And we are looking at y cubed minus 8. So this is a difference, and we've got a cubed. So we have to look at if this is a perfect cubed, and it is. It's 2 cubed. It's 2 times 2 times 2 will get you 8. So you need to figure out that you have a is equal to y, because that's our formula, uses a's, and b is equal to 2, because it's whatever the cubed root is of those. And remember, it's going to be the same, opposite, always positive on your signs. So the first set of parentheses will be the same. So it'll have a minus. Remember, it spells soap. And then you're putting in your A and your B. The second one will have A squared, and then it is the opposite sign. So we had a negative, so it'll be a positive. And then it'll be A times B, so 2y, always positive, and then B squared. So that's where we get the soap. Same, opposite, always positive. Same sign you started with, opposite sign, always positive. Now, you do not have to write it as 2 squared. You could have just written it as the 4, but I want to make sure everybody knows where the numbers came from. So this would be your final answer right here. So that is the difference of cubes. If you had the plus sign instead for the sum of cubes, then it would be the same sign. It would be the opposite, always positive. So it would have been positive, negative, and then positive. Alrighty. And all formulas will be provided on your exam. All right, number 12. We are asked to solve 2x minus 5 times x plus 1 equal to 0. This is already factored, so we don't have to factor it. We just need to solve it. So you take each part, set it equal to 0. We're going to add our 5 over and get 2x is equal to 5, and then divide by 2, because we're just solving for x here. Subtract 1, we get x equal to negative 1. So this is one solution, this is the other solution. You must show the part where it's equal to 0, or I will take off. That is a required step. All right, number 13. So number 13, I'm not going to write out like a whole problem, but it's something like this one. An object is thrown downward from the height of a building. Oh, some typos in there. Not a building, but a building. The height of the object after t seconds is given by an equation. When will the object hit the ground? So this is similar to your number 11 on your review. All right. So we're doing the object thrown. And our equation is h of t is equal to negative 16t squared plus 576. So if we're looking to see when it hits the ground, you have to understand that the height of the ground is 0. So the height is going to be equal to 0. So we just set the equation equal to 0. Now, we're looking for a GCF. They both divide by 16. We're going to go ahead and factor out the negative. So negative 16 times t squared, because we're factoring out the negative, that will be a negative. And 576 divided by 16 will get you 36. And this is still equal to 0. Now, we can divide by the 16 to just clear it out. 0 divided by 16 is still 0. And we don't need the parenthesis now, so we have t squared minus 36. Now, t squared minus 36, oh, that's the difference of squares, isn't it? So we know that it will factor to be a minus and a plus, and it doesn't matter if you put the plus first and then the minus. Square root of t squared will get us t. Square root of 36 is 6, still equal to 0. Now you have to take each of these and set them equal to 0. So t minus 6 equals 0, and t plus 6 equals 0. Adding the 6 over, we get t is equal to 6. Subtract the 6, we get t is equal to negative 6. Now, you're looking at when, when will the object hit the ground? So you're talking about a time. You cannot have a negative time. This one will not work. So it's only going to be 6 seconds. Because I imagine we're looking at, yes, it says seconds in the problem. All right. So number 14, we are asked to graph with x and y-intercepts. And our equation is 3x plus 5y is equal to 15. So we need to remember that when we're looking at intercepts, one of our values is going to be 0 because they're on the intercept line. So if we're looking for the x-intercept, we set y equal to 0. So this will get us 3x plus 5 times 0 for our y equal to 15. Anything times 0 becomes 0. So we're left with 3x is equal to 15. Divide both sides by 3, we get x equal to 5. So the intercept will be 5, 0. For the y-intercept, x will be equal to 0. So 3 times 0 plus 5y equals 15. Again, that goes away. Whatever the sign is, make sure you bring it down. So 5y equals 15. Divide by 5. Y is equal to 3. So we have 0, 3 as our intercept points. And you need to be able to write those as intercepts. Now, we'll come over here and we'll graph x and y. So we've got to have at least 5 hash marks because we've got a high of 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so we're graphing x-intercept at 5, y-intercept at positive 3. So plot your 2 points and draw your line. And it's just a sketch. I'm off a little bit, but it will be fine. If you are asked to do it using intercepts and you graph it using the slope, I will not count it right. It needs to be used during to do the intercepts. So I'm looking for this kind of work and then graphing just on the intercepts. All right, number 15. We are asked to graph x equal to 4. Well, you have to understand that's a vertical line. So when you go to graph this, we need a number of 4, so I'll do 4 hash marks on everybody. We're looking at x equals to 4, so go to your x and put a dot on it. You need a graph, no matter what, x is always equal to 4. If you graph this way, that's not going to be the right number because then x equals all kinds of values along here. We need it where no matter what, x is equal to 4. So if we were looking at a t-chart with x and y, no matter what, x equals 4. Y can be any values over here. X will always be 4, no matter what. So find the 4 of the x and draw the line so it's not on the axis, but going through that point. Same thing happens on the next one. We are going to graph y is equal to -5. So on this graph, again, we've got to have 5 hash marks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our x and our y. So -5 on the y, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm not going to draw my line on the axis. I have to go through that point. So I'm going to draw my horizontal line this way. And again, if we look at the points in a t-chart, no matter what, y is equal to 5. So if x is -2, it's -5. 0, it's -5. 2, it's -5. No matter what, y is equal to -5. If you go this way on it, then you're saying y is equal to everything. And the way to tell the difference, it says x equals, plot on the x-axis. Y equals, plot on the y-axis. And then draw your lines. Hopefully this review will help you in case you get stuck, that you can figure out what you need to do for each of the questions. Make sure you work your own review and turn it in.